I've known about dyslexia for the last 20 years because I got diagnosed when I was in college, and I'd always put down. I know that like the way I do work, I can't do like 9 till 5. Like it depends when it's flowing, when it's not, that kind of thing. I know a lot of people like that in creative fields, but I guess like for me, I do approach things from a slightly different perspective, but only because I was in school, my teachers would say, well, he did solve that thing, but he didn't do it the way we asked him to. He kind of like did this and then that and then worked around. And I think like you do get people who, you do kind of have to build your own roadmap sometimes because your brain doesn't go the logical way. So I think, yeah, people in creative fields, because they've done that their whole lives or since they were kids, maybe they do kind of filter down to these fields for that reason alone, I guess. So
very interesting.
Actually, I think I watched I think it was like a podcast clip or something. They were talking about how people who are dyslexic think differently than people who who can read normally. It's like you think, and maybe I could just be bullshitting here, but I think the example they gave was like if you're thinking about something, you're just seeing images in your brain rather than like the words.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that if you're actually reading, like the letters don't register in your brain.
Well, I stopped doing like written schoolwork on like exam. Like in the UK, you can leave school when you're 16. So I stopped doing kind of written exam work and stuff roughly at that age, and I went to like art school full time. So I was drawing and painting and doing more visual work because that was where my strength was. So you're like, it kind of like lines up exactly with that. And then I managed to get into film school, and the reason I did my test for dyslexia was because I had to write like a 20,000 word dissertation about a film topic or a documentary topic because it was a documentary film school, and I think that was the thing that made me need help because I was like, I can't do this.
Torture.
So I had like someone like sit with me and go through the plan and like go, hey, they broke it down into chunks for me and help me kind of. I don't think I could have written it without that support. So whereas with the visual side of things, I find myself working in like, say it's like video editing, or whether it's even editing audio and you're looking at waveforms, because there's like a visual representation. I tend to find I can work really quickly and like have like hyperfocus and, feel really comfortable. Whereas written word, I used to drive people crazy because like if I was doing a project, they'd be like, can we get a script? I'm like, no, I'm just going to go and do it. And they'd be like, no, we like to sign off on a script. I'm like, well, can you sign off on some bullet points and like some things that you definitely don't want me to do? Because I just don't do scripts, and some people hate that, especially if they want control over a project. And I think that's always been my way of working, was to go out and just kind of like, tell the story and, as the story emerged, pull things from it and then control it in the edit and, tailor it from there. I guess you just find your own way of working, and it doesn't always gel with everything, I guess. So.
That's interesting because I'm actually watching a show right now, and the head, there's like, it's like a detective show, and the detective is he's got dyslexia, and he won't take notes.
Yeah.
Everything's voice recorded because he can't, like, he won't be able to read it after. So he's just walking around like the crime scene being like, yeah, whatever, like it's a bloody mess, and like there's 14 bullet holes, and people are like, hey, can you, it's like, have a little respect for the victim here. And he's just like, I'm just taking notes, man.
Yeah, that's how I take my notes.
Yeah.
They did give me that's what they gave me for lectures, was like an old school like audio recorder as well, because I'm old, but like they gave me an audio recorder to kind of like capture stuff. But I think like even so, like most of my work has been like documentary or improv stuff or interview based, and I think that's just where you kind of gravitate towards the stuff you feel where your strengths are, I guess. So I don't know whether I gravitated because it was my strengths or it's because that was the only way I could work. I don't know, but whichever, it was fine.
So like, I feel like now it's probably such a good time if you have dyslexia, in terms of the fact, like, you have YouTube, you have audiobooks, like, you have all these forms of media that are not just writing. I feel like I remember listening to a podcast as well a while back, and it was a guy who also had dyslexia and started a company because he was bothering his mom for a very long time, and he was like, Mom, can you read me Harry Potter? And she's like, sure. but it takes time and all that stuff. And then he ended up making her audio making her like reading into audiobooks, and then he would like speed them up a lot. And then he ended up listening to things at like 2-3 speed. And then he ended up starting like a company that's pretty much specialized in helping people like deal and learn like with dyslexia through audio. And I think it's such a fascinating time for that.
I found like one of my big one of the big reasons I have so much passion about podcasting is that like since I started listening to podcasts, like I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, my ability to learn and like learn about new topics and everything, because I literally haven't read my wife she laughs at me because I buy books all the time because I'm like, I really want to read this book, it's really interesting, and I had somebody send me a book they'd written and I really want to read it, it's fascinating, but I really struggle to like, I'll read the same page like 4 or 5 times and I'm like, I don't know what I just read, I don't retain it, and but then weirdly I can read out loud without making many mistakes, but without processing what I've read, I can just vocalize the words, but my brain doesn't connect in my brain always. Is a really strange kind of relationship to have with the words on the page. But because of that kind of barrier, like podcasts have allowed me to kind of like, history, politics, economics, anything that I'm interested in, there is like a ton of content out there, and that's what drew me towards it. And before that, I did used to listen to audiobooks, because the old audio, like, used to get them on cassette or CD, that kind of thing. So even then it was like still a really kind of a useful tool, definitely. And I think that like the fact that there is so much content out there is incredible, especially for accessibility from that point of view. And I feel like the even things like reading on my phone as well, like with you can change the color of the background in the text, and sometimes that helps too. So I did read like the whole of Lord of the Rings trilogy on my phone years ago, but I found a setting of the color and the size of the font and the background that I was like, this is better.